humans, welcome to my world of stuff and welcome to a brand new short series that I'll be running over the next week or so, Countdown to Bond. We've got the new Bond film No Time to Die finally arriving in UK cinemas next week, and it's arriving in American cinemas the week afterwards. And I've got my tickets booked for a midnight screening on the first night. In fact, I think it's a week today. I should be setting off to see a midnight screening, so I'm very much looking forward to that. But what I thought I needed to do is revisit the Daniel Craig Bond films. Now, of course, No Time to Die is the last of Daniel Craig's 5 Bond films. It's the final one that he's doing, and I realised I haven't revisited his Bond films to any degree really since he started, and certainly Casino Royale, which is the first one I'm looking at in this video, I've not seen that for well over a decade, probably 15 years. It came out in 2006 and I think I've probably seen it twice. I saw it in the cinema, would have seen it on DVD, but I've not seen it since. I've not felt the need to revisit it. The reason for that being is that I had some problems initially with this reinvention of Bond in the 21st century, this realistic Bond that we were given. Bond, to me, certainly in the films, I've never read the books, certainly in the films, he's this larger than life superhero, if you like, without superpowers, but he's this super secret agent who has extraordinary adventures against mad villains who have underwater bases or headquarters in volcanoes, hollowed out volcanoes, and they're just great big loud boys own action films. Now obviously culture has changed, certainly in the 21st century, and that sort of thing isn't quite as acceptable perhaps as it was, and certainly some of Bond's attitudes to females is extremely questionable, and I accept that there are certain things that you can't do in the 21st century. My concern was in grounding Bond, you take away the essence of what Bond is. I think Bond is supposed to be big, he's supposed to be larger than life, his adventures are supposed to be globe trotting and escapism. You know, it's the thing that, you know, men all want to be Bond and women want to be with Bond. But I accept that attitudes change, and that's you can't really get away with something as simplistic as that anymore. But I was a bit concerned that Bond would be watered down a bit and just become another spy, a grounded, realistic spy that we're supposed to empathise with and care about his past and his family and watch him being in touch with his emotions. And that never seemed to me to be what Bond was about. So I saw Casino Royale in the cinema in 2006, and it's not that I didn't follow it, because the story when you watch it now is pretty linear, pretty straightforward, but it didn't seem to me to be the sort of Bond that, one, that I was used to, and two, that I wanted to see. But in deciding to revisit his films, I sat down on the weekend to watch Casino Royale again, and I was completely blown away by it. I thought it was a terrific film that actually paid homage to the Bonds of the past and had little nods to them, but was certainly much more grounded. It was much more modern day Bond, if you like. I think that what we have to do is completely ignore the idea of putting some sort of chronology to Bond and trying to put his adventures into a timeline, because that's just, that way lies madness, because I don't think it's possible. I think we have to accept that Bond's story isn't linear. Bond's story, I used to have a theory that the name James Bond was a code name. 007 was the agent designation, and James Bond is a code name. There have been several different people who call themselves James Bond, but of course subsequent events in Daniel Craig's films have made that, have sort of thrown out that theory. So I think we just have to accept that we can't really reconcile Daniel Craig's James Bond with Sean Connery's, with Roger Moore's, with any of the previous Bonds, because there's no way that those stories sort of fit in together. Story of Casino Royale then basically is a reboot. It's Bond gaining his 007 license to kill status, and becoming involved with thwarting the activities of a terrorist called Le Chiffre, played by Mads Mikkelsen, who is super rich and is basically funding terrorism. That's basically what the story is about, and to thwart him, Bond has to travel to Casino Royale in Montenegro, I believe it is, and effectively bankrupt Le Chiffre and stop him bankrolling terrorism. It sounds quite ordinary, it sounds quite drab, it sounds quite flat, but it really isn't, because this film is punctuated with those great big action sequences that we always associate Bond with. I mean, it starts off stunningly with this incredible parkour sequence where Bond is chasing this guy across rooftops and through markets, and it's just so adrenalised and so fast-paced. it's thrilling stuff. It's classic Bond, if you like, leaping from cranes and hanging from tall buildings is great stuff. And later on, there are more action set pieces. You forget how many there are. The fantastic sequence where terrorists are about to destroy this new prototype plane, which is just being rolled out, and Bond has to stop the terrorist who's going to destroy it. And that's a thrilling action sequence. And again, there's lots of fist fights, there's lots of stunts, but there are long sequences where Bond is just playing cards or travelling and meeting, and you get the sort of love interest Vesper Lind, who's supposed to be government agent responsible for keeping an eye on the funds that James Bond is using in his poker games with Le Chiffre, making sure he's got the funds available, but not too much. It is very grounded. It feels like a modern Cold War thriller, if you like, but with James Bond transplanted into it and taking some of the elements of the Bond films, but not the outlandish stuff. So you've got the action sequences, you've got the sexual tension between Bond and various women, and I think it works really, really well. I mean, the outlandish stuff that you get, which seeps through, is the villain Le Chiffre, who occasionally his eyes leak blood. It has no relevance to the plot, it has no relevance to the character, but it's just a gimmick in the way they say Jaws' metal teeth and Oddjob's deadly hat. It's just a little gimmick, but this doesn't really come to anything. And I suppose if this is any way resembles one of the earlier Bond films, it's in the sequence where Bond at the casino is poisoned, staggers back to his car, and tries to get to a defibrillator, which is in his car, to try and save his life and restart his heart. That's crazy. But it's very exciting because Bond is battling to stay alive against this toxin that's coursing through his body, and of course you get the extraordinary end sequence. Well, it's not even the end sequence. That's another thing I wanted to talk about, how much is packed into this film. But you get the sequence where Bond finally is confronted and captured by Le Chiffre, who tortures him in a very painful way. Let's just, we won't go into the details of it. I mean, if you've seen it, you know what it means. It makes most men wince, I think. And the casual way in which Le Chiffre is disposed of. And of course the story doesn't end there, because we have this coda where Bond decides that he wants to give up his life as a secret agent and settle down with Vesper Lind, played by the beautiful and mysterious Eva Green, who he has fallen in love with during the course of the story. But there's more surprises awaiting in Venice. That's what struck me about the film, is how much is packed into the narrative and the plot. It's very dense in terms of what's going on. I mean, it's a long film, it's about 2 hours 20 minutes, but it's never boring because there's always something going on. The story is pretty straightforward, actually. It's Bond subtly going up against terrorism. He's not going to the villain's secret headquarters, he's just one-on-one with this millionaire who's funding terrorists. And that is more grounded, that is more realistic and more believable. But it isn't less exciting because you've got all the stuff that's around it, all the action and the classic tropes of Bond presented in a more grounded 21st century way. I don't think I appreciated it at the time, quite how clever it is and quite how thrillingly dense it is as a film. It's really very well directed by Martin Campbell. Daniel Craig is really enthused to be playing this part. You can tell he brings a ruthlessness to the character. He's got that look about him of, a man who's now got the license to kill, and he's going to use it, and he does use it. And he's very implacable, very calm, very suave and sophisticated, always in control even when he isn't. You've got the Aston Martin is back, of course, as we know. It's back in No Time to Die. It really is a very classy, sophisticated reinvention, and it's quite easy to see why I think at the time it was the most successful Bond film at the box office. I think it took something like $700,000, which was small beer compared to what was to come in later Craig films. But it really is such a good film. It's such a good start for this new grounded era of Bond. And I keep saying the word grounded, but that really does, it's the word that applies. It's a Bond for our times, I suppose. Oh, and I also want to mention, because I didn't mention it, is the theme tune and title sequence. The theme tune is by Chris Cornell, the late Chris Cornell from Soundgarden, You Know My Name, which ties into the sort of the end of the film where Bond sort of announces who he is. It's great. It's classic Bond. It is really such a good song. We haven't been quite so lucky since. I think this was the last really great Bond song. It's got that feel of it. And of course, David Arnold is doing the music for the film, which is very Bondian all the way through the film. But it is a great theme song, very underrated, and I did watch it in my cinema room on the big screen, so I got the full impact of the sound and the visuals. Yeah, Bond, the music in Bond and the title music is so important. It sort of carries the film, and I think this is this song which isn't recognised as being one of the better Bond films. I think probably because it's been slightly swamped by the weaker stuff we've had since. But it's a great tune for a great film. It's a great film. I'm really sorry I haven't watched it before. I think, as I said, I didn't appreciate it back in 2006. I think I still had this resistance to Bond being brought down to earth when I wanted the mad action man, even though I was, one of the ones to complain about how ridiculous some of the Roger Moore films got, and even Pierce Brosnan's films started to go over the top towards the end. There was always that tendency for Bond to go a bit too far. I don't think they've done that with the Daniel Craig films. They've reined it back a bit, possibly because he's an actor who brings that to the character. But I think at the time I was a bit resistant to Bond just becoming another spy. But I think it works really well here because there's enough of the old Bond with the new Bond to make a really interesting sort of combination of the best of both worlds. It's a great film. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it again, and I will watch it again soon because there's so much going on in it and it's so energised. And it gets, from me, a mighty, I guess 9 out of 10 because it's a great film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that's my first countdown to Bond. Of course, there's 3 more to go, which I'll be doing in the next few days as we head towards No Time to Die. And I will be posting a review of No Time to Die as soon as I have seen it. The next one I'm going to be watching, of course, is the much maligned Quantum of Solace. Now, I haven't watched this again since it came out. I quite enjoyed it at the time, but I'm aware of the criticism that has built up over the years about it. So I'll be very interested to see how this one turns out when I watch it, probably later tonight, and I'll do a video in the next couple of days. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this little look back at Casino Royale. Why not leave a comment on Bond generally, Daniel Craig's Bond, your hopes and fears for No Time to Die, what you thought of Casino Royale, and most importantly, like and subscribe to the channel because that will do wonders for this channel, because I'm still struggling with the old subscribers, and I know that I only post things intermittently. I've got quite a few bits and pieces on at the moment, quite a heavy commitment by the end of the year, which is going to take a lot of time, but I'm still going to be posting stuff here because I'm determined to get to 100 subscribers. I know it sounds pitiful, but I want to get there if I can and see where we go from there. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. As I said, leave a comment on anything Bond related, and until I see you next time, hey, you keep taking the stuff.